An old love flame may be interesting while it's going on, but the consequences of it may be extreme, like a consequence coming back 5 decades later, like Ms. Holshoe's present situation.
Ms. Holshoe, you claim your mother had an affair with the defendant's father, and today you're in court to prove that he is your biological father. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
That's a really confusing web of stories. Mr. Howard had an affair with Ms. Holshoe's mother decades ago, and Ms. Holshoe is in court to prove Mr. Howard is indeed her biological father. However, Ms. Howard and her sisters, who happen to be Mr. Howard's children, say Ms. Holshoe is just being a menace and they are not related. Whew, that's a tough one.
So, Ms. Holshoe, why do you believe you're related to the Howards?
Because my mother and Mr. Howard both told me that he was my father, and also family members on his side of the family have also said that I'm his daughter.
Ms. Holshoe was on Mr. Howard's obituary, but the Howard sisters still doesn't believe Ms. Holshoe is a part of their family. The Howard sisters claim their aunt put Ms. Holshoe's name there, and that's only because their aunt is a friend of Ms. Holshoe's mother. But it's rare that Mr. Howard's sister would just want to force a baby on her brother if the baby isn't his.
My mother told me, and she took me and introduced me to DL, and we had a relationship from then on.
Your Honor, first and foremost, I just want to say, I mean, there's kids out there that have been adopted that have cancer, that have no idea about anything of their family history. I get it, the doctors ask.
The Howard sisters really have something against Ms. Holshoe being their stepsister. Even with Ms. Holshoe's sad story and how she found out about her supposed biological father, one of the Howard sisters is still going at it with Ms. Holshoe. Maybe there's an inheritance involved they just don't want Ms. Holshoe to be a part of.
Did you ever hear about Ms. Holshoe?
Never heard her.
Did anyone ever mention her?
Never.
Yes, one time when I was 19 years old, my dad, he was in from California. My parents were already divorced. We were in from California. He had us all meet him out at an old country bar. We showed up, and her mother was there.
One of the Howard sisters claimed to have seen Ms. Holshoe when she was 19, but nothing else aside from that. On the other hand, Ms. Holshoe says she can't recall the incident one of the Howard sisters mentioned, and they go back to arguing. But as Ms. Holshoe mentioned, what's the big deal in their father being her biological father too?
Like it was yesterday. They were sitting in a booth with my dad across from her and her mother. I was standing at the end, and he said, I just brought you guys here to let you know that she's your sister.
Even Mr. Howard agreed to Ms. Holshoe being his biological daughter while he was alive, but one of the Howard sisters still can't believe that's true. The Howard sisters believe their dad had messed around with different women, including Ms. Holshoe's mother, but they want to believe Ms. Holshoe was not a product of that affair.
When I was 17, I had moved to California to live with my father. I flew out with her younger sister. I lived there for quite a while, and her name was never, ever mentioned to me. From her mother, from my father, no one.
And just to be clear, your mother and father were married.
Yes.
Yes.
The Howard sister claimed she didn't know anything about Ms. Holshoe at all, but still said in the same breath that their father had gone to Ms. Holshoe's mother's place of work and caught her cheating. Those stories don't align, but maybe they are going somewhere with this. Who knows?
Your mother never told you there were any other possibilities?
Let me tell you this story. My mother married the person I thought was my biological dad when she was 14. Her and Mr. Howard were childhood sweethearts.
Ms. Holshoe claims the story she heard from her mother wasn't the promiscuous story the Howard sisters had painted. Instead, Ms. Holshoe's mother and Mr. Howard were childhood lovers, and they kept their relationship even when they had gotten married to other people.
Hello, Ms. Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ms. Holshoe contends that she shares a father with you and your sisters?
Yes.
And your sisters say, oh, no, she doesn't.
That's their opinion.
What is your opinion?
I believe that she is.
You do. Tell
Yes,
the
I
court
do.
why.
Because my father told me that she was.
Another one of the Howard sisters backs up Ms. Holshoe's claim of being Mr. Howard's biological daughter. Like the rest of them are, but the sisters won't stop fighting. The particular Howard says their father had personally told her, and that sums it all up. So whether Ms. Holshoe is trying to insert herself in their family or she's truly one of them, let's find out.
It has been determined by this court that the probability of half-siblingship between Diana Howard and Misty Lynn Holshoe is 98.1%.
A woman dragging her own mother to paternity court to find out the truth about her biological father rarely happens in paternity court. But Miss Curtis is making an exception as she genuinely wants to know the truth about her father.
The identity of your father from you for 14 years. Now today, there's a man waiting outside of the courtroom that your mother believes could be your biological father, yet you still have no idea if that's the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Curtis is curious about her paternity after she felt the first 14 years of her life about her father was a lie. However, Ms. Hall claims she was planning to tell Ms. Curtis the truth someday, but unfortunately, a family member ruined her supposed perfect plan of revealing Ms. Curtis's real father to her.
Miss Curtis, how did you come to find out that the man you originally thought was your father was not your biological father?
Grandma told 14-year-old Ms. Curtis to take the secret to her grave, but who would hear something like that and keep quiet about it, especially at that age? It gets worse with Ms. Curtis's explanation of how the man she believed to be her father had treated her. Anyone would be more than interested to know their real father.
A young age about who her father was. Simply one, because I was a young girl. I was pregnant at the age of 15. I gave birth to her when I was 16 years old. When I was 15, I met Kirk, which attracted me to him. And being young, at the time when I got pregnant, I didn't even know that I was pregnant because I didn't know anything about.
Ms. Hall cuts in to tell her own side of the story. Ms. Hall explained how it was a teenage pregnancy that she had not planned for since she didn't even know anything about the body at that time. Okay, Ms. Hall, mistakes happen for sure, but that isn't Ms. Curtis's fault. She was brought into the world without her consent, and the least she could get was to know her biological father.
Miss Curtis, when you finally confronted your mother and told her what your grandmother said, what did she tell you?
She began to tell me her own version of the story about who my alleged father at the time. She said, he's not really your dad, baby. And I said, okay, I already know that.
Ms. Hall wanted to keep lying about Ms. Curtis's biological father's real name, but Nana already told on her by revealing the actual name and the truth behind Ms. Curtis's birth to her. Ms. Hall realized she couldn't lie about anything else to her daughter.
One day that I'll have to sit up real down and talk to her and let her know who her father is. The time that I set forth for her was at the age of 16.
At the age of 16?
But
what if something was supposed to happen to me in between the times?
I was the mother. I was the one who took care of you, raised you.
It didn't matter if she had a father? That's insane, Ms. Hall. There's a reason both the male and female gender have to copulate to produce a baby, but it doesn't seem like Ms. Hall is aware of that reason. Ms. Curtis says she always wanted a child just like any other normal child would.
I was young. I made a mistake. I didn't want her to be a victim of that.
She wanted to live the rest of her childhood life through me. She wanted me to do the things that she wasn't able to do. I didn't even go to the prom because I don't know how to dance. I don't know how to do anything that my father should have taught me.
Living through your daughter because you made a mistake is ridiculous. Again, it wasn't Ms. Curtis's fault that Ms. Hall got pregnant as a teenager. Ms. Curtis was even unable to go to the father-daughter dance because she didn't have a father to go with, but her mother thought she didn't just want to go. Pathetic.
And then there was a letter that he wrote back to me.
What did it say?
I never
Your
got
Honor,
the
she
letter.
doesn't even know. I have the letter right here.
Jerome,
Your Honor,
thank you.
you're welcome.
This is the first time she'll ever see the letter.
He does state he's willing to be the father she needs and deserves.
Ms. Hall wrote a letter to Mr. Kirk in prison, but Ms. Curtis was the one who got the letter he wrote back. The most shocking part here is Ms. Curtis not wanting kids because of the way her mother had made her feel and the way her paternity issue has been so messy. That's fair.
Do you believe you're Miss Curtis's father?
Well, Your Honor, I'm actually somewhat doubtful. And having said that, it's because the way the situation went down. When Tamika initially told me, hey, I'm pregnant, you're the father. But as I remember, she was also in a relationship with someone else.
Ms. Hall was in a relationship with someone else when she told Mr. Whitaker she was pregnant, but being used to the fast life and that kind of sentence from different girls every day, Mr. Whitaker didn't seem to take her seriously. We need to wipe the tears of Ms. Curtis's eyes, so let's get to the bottom of this.
Mr. Whitaker, you are her father.
As As advanced as science has been over the centuries, it has not been proven that a woman can birth a baby with the sperm of a man, except for how Jesus Christ was conceived in the Bible. So this case of Ms. Ellis and Mr. Coger can only go two ways.
Ms. Ellis, you claim you had a brief fling with the defendant 3 years ago. Soon after, you ended up pregnant, and now you hope to prove that he fathered your 3-year-old son, Zamarian.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Coger, you argue it would have to be a medical miracle for you to be her child's father.
Ms. Ellis claimed she and Mr. Coger had a brief affair, and that led to the pregnancy of her baby. But Mr. Coger strongly disagrees with her. Mr. Coger even claimed there was no need for the court to order a DNA test, and that's shocking. That's the first time we'd be hearing that on paternity court.
Mr. Coger, I have to ask you, you're here in paternity court. Why do you oppose the test?
Because we didn't have sex. We did not have sex.
So he says.
Okay.
Oh, we did.
Mr. Coger,
Yes.
Tell me how you met.
You know, laugh it up, stuff like that. So it came to the point where she wanted to come over and stuff like that. So she would come over, we would hang out. Over the next course of time, you know, we ended up being home alone.
Mr. Coger's reason for not needing a DNA test is that he didn't sleep with Ms. Ellis. Mr. Coger did admit they tried to fool around, but he couldn't make Ms. Ellis's discomfort get worse. So he tapped out and called it a day.
Okay, so you told him you did not want to have sex.
No, that was after the fact that we hadn't already started.
Okay, and you're saying that you never started having sex?
Yes, and I have proof of that.
I'd like to see that proof. Jerome, this is a message.
We never messed around at all.
So Ms. Ellis wanted them to try again, but Mr. Coger wasn't willing to. Still on the same page, Ms. Ellis felt like the intercourse had happened, but Mr. Coger can't agree with that because according to him and his reproductive organ, nothing like that happened in the room.
You say she experienced pain before sex, so you never had sex with her.
She told me.
And you're saying that it was painful during the sex and you asked him to stop.
Those are two conflicting stories. Ms. Ellis says it was already happening. Mr. Coger said they hadn't even started. Someone has got to be lying and someone is telling the truth, but how do we know who is telling the truth? Because that's what is needed in the courtroom at this moment.
The nurse came back in the room, asked my mom to step out the room. So she came to me and she was like, do you know that you're pregnant? So I was like, no, I'm not. Can you do another test? So she was like, is your name Ms. Ellis? I was like, yeah. She was like, oh, okay, well, you're pregnant. I was like, out of all people, I'm pregnant, really? So when I found out I was pregnant, I was already 8 weeks and 3 days pregnant.
That's a funny way to get to know you're pregnant. Passing out in a public place and waking up to the news of being pregnant is definitely out of touch for anyone. Oops.
So, Mr. Coger, how did you find out about the
I
pregnancy?
found out via Facebook.
Oh.
Facebook.
And I have my ultrasound picture. I have my ultrasound picture when I found out.
I was scrolling, we was friends on Facebook. I scrolled through her pictures, found out she was pregnant. I saw her stomach, she was all pregnant, stuff like that. So
why would Mr. Coger ask Ms. Ellis if the baby was his if he was certain he didn't have sex with her? Mr. Coger just set his own trap with that particular question. Yeah, Ms. Ellis denied the pregnancy being his, but she said that was because she didn't want to have any relationship with him. But why are we here today if that's the case, though?
The only thing we did was just tussle around in the bed. Like I said, I never had sex.
Had you been intimate with anybody else during the time you were with Mr. Coger?
Yes, a week or so prior to us messing around, yes.
So a week or so prior to you and Mr. Coger having the sex that you may not have had.
Miss Ellis had been intimate with another man, hence her reason for striking Mr. Coger out of the picture, but the truth still needs to come out.
Hi, Ms. Williams, and you are Mr. Coger's wife?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what is your understanding concerning this situation?
My understanding is it's not his child. And I support my husband in the whole thing because there's no reason for him to lie about something that happened before we even got together.
He lied about a lot of things. You don't know about a lie.
He doesn't have to lie about having sex with anyone.
Sex in the car? That's an interesting detail, but it got cut short. Ms. Coger's wife takes the stand and expectedly defends her husband. Ms. Coger's wife says her husband isn't the baby's biological father. There's Ms. Ellis on the side having some flaky remarks about Mr. Coger. You know what? Let's get to the result.
Mr. Coger, you are Zamarian's father.
must get their thinking cap on to understand this particular case, as it's full of twists and turns. Mr. Medley Sr. may deny all he wants, but his 3 children in court today must find out the truth.
Mr. Heron and Mr. Medley, you are here to prove to Mr. Medley Sr. that you are indeed his sons.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Johnson, you grew up without a father for 26 years and claimed that when you finally found the defendant, he claimed he didn't know you existed.
Yes, Your Honor.
There's Mr. Heron, Mr. Medley Jr., and Ms. Johnson pointing to Mr. Medley Sr. as their father. Even though Mr. Heron and Mr. Medley Jr. come from the same mother while Mr. Johnson is from a different mother, they have teamed up together to know if Mr. Medley Sr. is indeed their biological father. However, Mr. Medley Sr. says he has reasons for doubting his 3 potential children's paternity.
Mr. Heron and Mr. Medley Jr., please explain to the court how difficult your life has been without having a father.
It affected me in life. Want to know why he wasn't in my life? Why would you give me your full name as a junior? Why would you sign my birth certificate if you deny me as your child? It hurts me like all get out.
Mr. Medley Jr. has every right to be angry since Mr. Medley Sr. even gave him his name. That must have definitely meant something, or maybe not, because Mr. Medley Sr. left Jr. and his brother. Mr. Medley Sr. defends himself, saying he heard their mother had been sleeping around with other men.
Why do you even think he's denying you? What is the reason?
The reason why I think he's denying me is because when his mother died in 2007, he was nowhere in our lives before then. His mom came down for Christmases,
birthdays,
everything.
Gave us and she
everything.
treated us like we was her grandkids.
Mr. Heron and Mr. Medley Jr. seemed to miss their grandmother because it seemed like she did a better job being their parent than their father could ever be. Mr. Heron wants Mr. Medley Sr. to take a better look at him and see the resemblance, but according to Mr. Medley Sr., he's seeing it.
Let me ask you a question. If you had a child with a woman and you didn't believe it was yours, would you be there?
Personally, and you ask me that, I would. I would be
Right.
the man. And I would take a DNA test and I would not wait 30 years to do it.
Mr. Medley tried to get smart with his potential sons, but they gave him a surprising answer of not waiting for decades to know about the paternity of a child they aren't sure about. Mr. Medley says there wasn't DNA testing in the 80s. Okay, Mr. Medley Sr.
Ms. Johnson, in your statement to the court, you indicated you grew up not knowing who your father truly was.
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me about that.
I grew up in and out of foster care, but I had asked my mom, I was like, Mom, this is enough. I just need to know what's the name of my dad. So she told me his name was Victor Medley, but you are not to contact him while you are in my house.
It's Ms. Johnson's turn, and you can tell she's been soaking in her emotions. Hearing from your mother that you can't contact your supposed biological father in her house due to their bad meeting would have devastated anyone, but Ms. Johnson agreed.
I sent him a message. I said, this may seem strange, but I had a conversation with my mom, and my mom told me that you are my dad. He was happy. So this was the first time I've ever heard about him denying me, because to me, he never denied me. He denied my brothers.
Catching up with Ms. Johnson wasn't bad, like the meeting Mr. Medley Sr. had with Ms. Johnson's mother. Ms. Johnson even claimed he never denied her, and it's coming as a shock to her hearing in court that he denied her alongside her potential brothers.
You having a daughter?
No, but I did not deny her. We didn't get into this DNA test until on Mother's Day. When I had over from Mother's Day, she kept talking about, I need a DNA test.
No.
Yes.
That's not true. I never asked you for a DNA test.
No, you told my friend that
no,
you
I
wanted
didn't.
a DNA test.
Mr. Medley Sr. also agreed to never denying Ms. Johnson as his daughter, but that changed when he heard Ms. Johnson had told his friend that she wanted a DNA test, to which Ms. Johnson denied she ever said anything like that.
She was having problems with her van, and I had said that I would help her because at my job, they was going to give us a retro pay, but
Get to the point.
Child support
Get to the point.
Child support took the check. I didn't have the money.
Due to Ms. Johnson's early life, where she claimed she was always lied to and couldn't trust people easily, coupled with the money incident, Mr. Medley Sr. claimed that made him want to not associate with her anymore. Mr. Medley Sr. sure did a couple of things, so it's time to know the truth about these grown-ups' paternity.
Mr. Medley Sr., you are not her father.
Okay.
Mr. Medley, what are you feeling now?
I don't know. I thought she was my daughter.
Having a baby when you've been told you can't have one is indeed a miracle baby, but the miracle may turn sour if the biological father of the baby doesn't want to come forward and accept his responsibilities.
Ms. Serfoso, you call your daughter, Cinity, your miracle baby.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because you were told you'd never have kids. And when she was born, she had 3 possible fathers, including Mr. Miller.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Mr. Miller, you and your fiance, Ms. Dreyer, say Ms. Serfoso is lying about paternity, and you have physical proof.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Serfoso spins the wheel the reveal of her baby possibly having 3 potential fathers, in which Mr. Miller is one of them. However, Mr. Miller and his wife claim Ms. Serfoso is lying and she's just trying to push the baby on only Mr. Miller.
Ms. Serfoso, I have to ask you this. How do you end up with 3 possible fathers for your miracle baby?
Ma'am, at that time, I do have a past just like everybody else at that time. It was party central for me. I was just partying all the time. When I found out I was pregnant, I was involved with somebody else.
Ms. Serfoso says everyone has a past, and that led to her wayward lifestyle of always partying. Ms. Serfoso realized she was pregnant along the line, but there were about 3 men who she had sexual encounters with, including Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller immediately denies being a part of Ms. Serfoso's shenanigans.
You had sex without using protection.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Miller, you agree that happened?
No, ma'am, I have no...
You have not? So how do you remember this going?
I vaguely remember meeting her at my family member's house at a party. I was partying a lot, and they said I took her upstairs, and I don't remember.
They said.
Mr. Miller says he didn't remember what had happened after they had gone upstairs, but Ms. Serfoso tackled him right back, saying that wasn't how the scene played out. With a different explanation, it's hard to pick a side on this one.
There are other possible fathers as well.
Yes, Your Honor.
Please elaborate.
The reason we had broken off is because he went to my best friend. I caught his car at my best friend's house. And at that time, I found another.
Sleeping with friends and forgetting what happened with the other friend just seems like Mr. Miller is sneaky. At least he agrees to sleeping with the friend, but best believe there's a lot more tricks under Mr. Miller's sleeve. We don't know what we might hear next. Maybe he doesn't even remember coming to paternity court.
One of them actually was throughout my whole pregnancy with me, cut her umbilical cord, and actually pursued on until he was excluded.
You've had a DNA test with that gentleman, and unfortunately, he's been excluded as a potential father.
Yes, Your Honor, that is why I'm here today.
There's another man.
Yes, Your Honor.
Right?
Yes, Your Honor.
One of Ms. Serfoso's 3 potential baby daddies is off the hook since DNA already proved he's not the baby's father. Ms. Serfoso didn't reach out to the second person, and she's left with only Mr. Miller. This is because Ms. Serfoso believes that's his baby, but Mr. Miller doesn't think so.
Okay, she never texted me or him or anybody to start with. In December of 2013, I was talking to my ex, who had ended up with Mr. Serfoso. And he says, well, you know, I'm here with Michael's baby.
Uh-huh. Mr. Miller's fiance's baby daddy winded up being by Ms. Serfoso's side? How small can their town be? Wow. Anyway, she got to know through him that her fiance may have fathered a child, and he thinks Ms. Miller's fiance should know about it.
Sometime in September could have also been a window of conception for the baby.
That was not
All of her
there.
friends even say she sleeps with guy to guy to guy to guy. She jumps
She
from
don't
guy to
even know
guy.
my friends, Your Honor.
I know her friends
So-
because they're his.
Mr. Miller claimed he wasn't even in town during the window on conception, but Judge Lake proves him wrong, saying September was a possible time of conception too. However, Ms. Miller's fiance says it still couldn't be because Ms. Serfoso is allegedly always sleeping around. Except there's evidence Mr. Miller's fiance words can't be trusted just like that.
She's even told me stories about my own kids' father. In December, she was texting me, telling me that my kids should be told that their father is dead because he had a new life with her and her child.
Ma'am,
and
that
he was
was
no longer
never-
going to be their baby.
that was never
And
said.
that is what she said to me.
That was never
The bickering continues. Mr. Miller's fiance has a whole lot to say about the relationships between everyone, even more than Mr. Miller himself. Well, Ms. Serfoso is getting emotional. We should find out who her miracle baby daddy is real quick.
Mr. Miller, you are not her father.
Told you. Thank God. Thank God.
So now where's the other man?
Sisters may not agree on the same things a lot of times, but blood-related sisters not agreeing on their paternity is on a whole new level. Mr. Hardin and his potential daughters are about to go through an emotional roller coaster.
Ms. Ganal, you and your sister agree that the man you've known to be your father is denying paternity.
Yes.
Yet you disagree about why you've come to court today. One of you is hoping the DNA test will prove he is your biological father.
Ms. Guinild and her sister are in the stand, hoping for different results at the end of the session, while their supposed father picks one of the sister's options, which is the sisters not being his daughters, because their mother gave him more than enough reasons to doubt their paternity.
Ms. Ganal, first, just explain to the court, when's the last time you saw this man?
Mr. Hardin actually came to our house in Minnesota and with his two sisters, and which we all just spent the day together. And the last I recall, I was 11 years old, and my sister Kiera was 10.
11? And you're 26 now?
Correct.
That's heartbreaking. Mr. Hardin made his potential daughters wait for him and never showed up. It is as clear as day the reason one of the sisters doesn't even want him to be their father. Let's hear Mr. Hardin's explanation.
Their mother didn't allow me to come around them at all. There's no way that I would not want to be around my daughters, Your Honor.
You're lying right there.
I asked for a paternity test from day one, and Your Honor, I've always doubted because I used to catch Ms. Gunnell with several different men during the course of our relationship.
Mr. Hardin claimed it was Ms. Guinild's promiscuous attitude that made him have doubts about the paternity of the Guinild sisters. If Mr. Hardin truly saw men running out of the door or whatever, then he's right to have had doubts.
That Shanice, your oldest daughter, is yours. What specific thing happened?
They were 9 years old before she said that I was the father.
Well, look, when you found out she was pregnant, did you think the baby was yours?
There was a possibility, Your Honor, but
You only felt there was a possibility?
Yes, because she had slept with two of my friends prior to that.
2 of Mr. Hardin's friends? That's unbelievable. Also, the arrangement of the sisters' births seems suspicious. In a normal household, there's nothing wrong with having children a year apart, but according to Mr. Hardin's explanation, something doesn't feel right. But who knows?
Mr. Hardin is saying that each time you told him you were pregnant, he doubted whether or not he was their biological father because you had been unfaithful. Were you unfaithful?
I was dealing with somebody prior to us getting together. And like I said, prior to us getting together, he was also in a relationship.
Ms. Guinild says she was with somebody prior to their relationship, however. She revealed that Mr. Hardin was also in a relationship before their relationship. About the important part, Ms. Guinild says she was seeing somebody during the window of conception of her first daughter, so there is a possibility.
She told you point blank that there could be someone else.
She did not tell me. A friend of mine told me, Your Honor.
Yes, I did.
A friend of mine actually brought it to my attention. He actually told me that she had several different men that she had been engaged with over the time.
So, is that true?
No.
Ms. Guinild says she told Mr. Hardin about it, but Mr. Hardin immediately denies it and claims it was his friend that told him about it. Anyway, Mr. Hardin's name isn't on the birth certificate, but he's owing child support, which has accrued to a lot of money.
No, you don't understand.
No, I don't understand, so explain it.
I'd like to
I'm trying to explain it right now. Last year we went to court about this. I begged the court to please give me a paternity test.
You took me to court last year to modify your child support payment.
I tried.
It's all about the money. The money. You never, when you started paying child support payments, that's when you wanted DNA tests. You didn't have none of this before.
Mr. Hardin claims he wanted a DNA test, but one of his potential daughters said he had all the time to do it rather than wait for so many years. Mr. Hardin's potential daughters believe Mr. Hardin eventually asked for a DNA test due to the money he was owing, and not that he cares about them or who their father really is.
Yes, Your Honor, I found that out the hard way.
Yeah,
and their mom actually told me that they weren't mine. Actually,
what?
Also too.
No, I
she
never
told
did.
me that.
Never
She
did.
came out of her mouth with.
That's
When did she tell you?
She told me that she wanted me to contact the other fellow that she used to date. That may be a possibility. She
No, I
asked
never
me
did
to give
say
me
that.
her number, and she said that basically she doesn't know, and they may not be mine. Period.
So Ms. Geinild already put an insurmountable amount of doubt in Mr. Hardin's heart and still went ahead to crown it with the kids may not be his, okay. Ms. Geinild denied it, but as usual, we don't know who is telling the truth. Whether it's Ms. Geinild or Mr. Hardin, it's hard to judge who's wrong, and only the result can make all the pathetic excuses and stories go away.
Mr. Hardin, you are her father.
I told you. I told you. I told you. I told you.
In the case of Geinild v. Hardin, when it comes to Kiera Geinild, Mr. Hardin, you are her father.
I told you. I told you.